Meet the Makers, a spotlight on homegrown Montana craftsmen and artisans. Brought to you by Slam. It's time to meet the Makers.
How did your studio land in Montana?
Well, I'm from here. I grew up in East Helena.
Okay.
And then I was in the Coast Guard for 4 years. When I got out, I came back to Bozeman to go to school. Went to school here, then worked a bit at the mill that used to be here in Belgrade.
Oh,
then
interesting.
Started with Flatiron Banjo and Mandolin Company, which was in Bozeman here. And then Gibson bought them, and I ended up rear plant manager at Gibson. And then they were having a lot of growing pains, and I ended up really thinking that I wanted to build on a smaller level, you know, maybe a little higher end, but certainly more custom. So I contacted Santa Cruz Guitar Company, and they were in the process of expanding a little bit and wanted somebody that had some management experience, as well as the ability to come in and work at building, you know, at least 60-70% of the time. So I basically had a full-time job building and was doing management for them. I only stayed with them maybe 5-6 years before I moved back here. My wife was an instrument maker as well, and she got reactive airway disease from rosewood. So we moved back here, and I started a shop doing their service or their repair and building their high-end arch tops. I left Santa Cruz right as everything was going downhill, 2008, 2009. It was quite an interesting thing to try to start a business after that had happened. So, but I managed to do it. I had to start out building essentially only 2 models. And, you know, 20 minutes you can talk to me. I have a modern and a vintage, and the prices were really, really low to get started, a couple $1,000s. And what I found out really quick was what people wanted from me was custom stuff, because that was what wasn't readily available. I very quickly ended up having to raise the price and change the nature of my business back to custom.
Interesting.
And went really to a much higher level of custom, so that each instrument was approached as a custom instrument. How wide do you want your nut? You know, what's the width we want to go with at the bridge? And really opening my business up to any stringed instrument player's needs, which is where an instrument like this came from. It's a 16-string contra guitar. It goes down, covers bass, baritone, and up into guitar. And he's got 2 of them I've built for him, and they cover the range from not only bass, baritone, and guitar, but they're tuned within the double courses, both intervallically and octave. So nothing like that, as far as I know, had ever existed before. And that's one of the things that really has driven me, is the ability to help a musician reach their vision. That, as he's told me many times, he knew where he wanted to go, but he had no way to get there. And so...
And you were kind of that
slowly,
outlet for the way to get there.
Yeah, so it was
Has
really
there ever
exciting.
been a project that has felt too intimidating to take on?
Well, this one,
Okay.
but I did it.
And it worked out the way you wanted it to?
Yeah. Well, he says it's still a truly integral part of his instrumentation for his compositions and so on. And he's winning or being, I don't know how many he's won, but every year it seems like he gets nominated for several Grammys.
And when you say he, can you just specify?
Kevin Kastning.
Okay.
And he is largely in the modern classical and jazz fusion genre.
Very nice.
So pretty eclectic, but really a wonderful musician.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about some of the tools that you brought over?
We started out using shapers to shape the necks faster and so on. And then CNC came along, and it truly has revolutionized the industry in a way that can't be overstated. But at the same time, it has made custom instrument making. There's a bigger difference between custom and factory because of that. If it costs several $1,000s worth of time to go in and change the neck shape or the width of the nut, then the answer is going to be no, we can't give you that neck. But a custom builder can. And so what I've actually done is I find myself much more inspired by hand tools. So much of my career was spent slowly incorporating more and more CNC and feeling like that was maybe key to profitability on a bigger level, but that it was getting in the way of creativity in terms of custom building. And I found slowly that I discovered tools that I didn't even know existed. I lived in Japan for 3 years and was somewhat involved with metallurgy and the sword. I studied Aikido over there, which involves swords. Well, they started applying those techniques to chisels and planes. So this is
Can I feel how heavy?
a really, it's quite heavy actually.
It's actually much lighter than I thought it would be.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's super
and
light.
Here's a finer, those are both critical to what I do. And I had learned a lot about those. But in shaping necks and so on, I found that the tools just weren't there. I mean, I could accomplish it, but it was a lot faster to do it on a CNC or even on a shaper and then sanders until I found these. And it's still a little faster, don't get me wrong, but these are hand stitched, meaning every little tooth on that has been raised with a punch and a hammer while it was annealed or softened. And they are purposely put in a random order. And then, so that and that can't be any other way. So long as you're doing it by hand, you can't get them in exact same
Precise,
order.
yeah.
When they're machined, they tend to fall into the same rows, and they make real deep gouges that then you have to take out later. So it takes a lot of extra time. Something like this, I can move a lot of wood very, very effectively and with great control and still have a very small tooth. This will get me to the point, this is called a 13 out of 15. So it's one of almost the finest. And I can take a card scraper and scrape it down to actual finer than I can do sanding.
Wow.
I'll still do a little bit of sanding and transitions, but these are 5th generation French rasp made by 2 families that built similar type rasps, stone rasps for Millet and Rodin and some of the great sculptors. So
Wow.
it's really, to me, it's extremely motivating and inspiring to be able to use tools like this.
Ever a project that was really frustrating, and how did you work through that frustration?
Where I find that daily is with repairs. Because every repair is different, and the worst ones are the ones somebody that didn't know what they were doing already tried and caused problems with. And sometimes I run out of things to do, and I have to stop and put it away for a few days or a week and then think about it. And what I find is I'll wake up in the middle of the night, think about it. And sometimes I even get kind of down about it. And then something will occur to me and I'll try it. And very seldom do I end up not finding a solution. So, but yeah, a lot of times it'll come to me in the middle of the night. I'll wake up with a start and go,
I know it.
oh,
Let me get to the studio.
yeah.
I know that feeling.
Right.
What's so special about the Montana maker community?
Well, you know, I feel like there's makers everywhere, but I think Montana still, I mean, there's a lot of people that have moved in, and I think often what they're attracted to is it's a smaller population, and a population that traditionally has been very reliant on themselves. And so, whereas America has given up a lot of the idea of making something yourself or repairing something yourself has largely gone away in a lot of areas. And I think it's still here in Montana. You know, they talk about jury rigging or something, or, you know, the farmers do a lot. They find a solution with what they have. And I think that is still part of the Montana culture. And so I think that it's a lot easier when people come here, they see that or they feel it. And it's very liberating to the human spirit, to the idea that we can build things and make things last, and that everything doesn't have to end up in the landfill after 2 years or something, or 6 months or whatever. And so I find it very inspiring. And it doesn't really matter what it is. I try to surround myself with people and with even like clothing, the tools. Instead of buying a tool that was just, you know, manufactured in China, I try to find somebody who's doing something really special, or somebody who can make a tool that I particularly need, or I'll make it myself. And I think that as a maker's culture, we rely on one another. And a lot of times I'll get a call from someone asking, hey, what would you do in this case? You know, and vice versa. I'll call people and say, you think there's some way I could accomplish this? You know, do you know how to weld aluminum in a whatever? You know, it's
very open, welcoming. Want to help. Have you
and
succeed.
we still believe it can be done.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
The power of positivity and hope.
Yeah, right.
Well, thanks for sharing so much about what you do today.
You're
it gave us a
welcome.
really nice insight into this really special and unique world, and we really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Sure.